Now I'd like to invite John Davis to come and share his views with us. John, if I could request you to come up to the stage. And a little bit about John. John Davis was a pioneer of vegetarianism on internet from the first days of WWW, or the World Wide Web, in 1994. Throughout this time, he has also been researching the history of International Vegetarian Union, or IVU, partly for presentations at the Centenary Congress in 2008, along with general vegetarian history, all supported by members of the IVU History email group. The result of this now run to about 10,000 historical files on IVU website. Over the years, IVU, John has attended congresses and other events in many countries, including Brazil, California, China, Germany, India, Indonesia, Scotland, Singapore, Spain, Switzerland, and Thailand. And he lives in rural England, so John, if I could request you to come here. Come on, guys.
Hi, hello. This is now for something completely different. Nothing about fresh fruit or vegetables, nothing about doing exercise, just about organised vegetarianism around the world and what's happening. In the beginning, what we have is ancient Greece and Rome and ancient India and in the middle Persia, and lots of people. On the left are ancient Greek philosophers, Roman emperors. The one at the very bottom left is Pythagoras, who you might know from his square on the hypotenuse theorem. But Pythagoras was also a philosopher and a teacher, and a lot of other things beside maths. On the right are various people from ancient India. I'm sure you'll recognise some of them. What they have in common is that they were all some sort of vegetarian, or some part of their lives. So we're going back a long way, 2,500 years in both Europe and India. The big question is who thought of it first? The academic view is that we don't know. The Indians will tell you, of course it started in India. Maybe it did. We don't really know for sure. What we do know in between was, in Persia, Zoroaster. We know the ancient Greeks went to Persia, and I think the ancient Indians went there. So it's possible the ideas swapped across. Maybe the Greeks learnt it from the Indians in some way when it was passing around. The ideas were surprisingly similar, including things like transmigration of souls. The ancient Greeks were talking along those lines as well. So we're going back a very long way, and then we're going to do a big jump into organised vegetarianism. What happened in Europe, vegetarianism almost disappeared after the first century of the Roman Empire. As Rome became more and more Christian, so vegetarians declined. In the East, of course, it continued. In India, East Asia, for religious reasons, just carried on right through the centuries. But we jump here right up to 1847 in England, where we've got the first vegetarian society was formed by two groups in London in the southeast, Manchester in the northwest. They got together and formed this society, which was completely independent of any religious views at all. There were a lot of different people involved in it. The two in the picture were from the Bible Christian Church in Salford near Manchester. And the one on the right was particularly important because he was a very wealthy businessman, and it helps having a lot of money when you want to do something like this. It's still there today. The building on the left is Parkdale near Manchester, which is the headquarters, has been since 1969. On the right is the library, which contains in bound volumes every journal back to 1846, right from the beginning. And naturally I made quite a lot of use in that in historical research. A few months ago, I was co-opted onto the board of the Vegetarian Society of the UK, as it's now called. So I'm spending a bit more time on there, on other business. 1850, American Vegetarian Society. I did this talk in San Francisco last February, and asked them there, when did they think the first ever American Vegetarian Society was founded? And they all said, well, 1960s, hippies, that's where it all came from. It was a long time before that. Man in the picture is Sylvester Graham. If you've heard of Graham crackers, that's where the name comes from. Sylvester Graham was promoting brown bread and healthy eating in the 1830s in America. Along with a few others, they founded that society. It lasted about 10 years, partly the Civil War, partly the man on the top right was helping to fund it, and he died, and that was the end of that one. But the British Society carried on. 1867, German Vegetarian Society followed along. That one's still going. They organised our centenary congress 2 years ago. It's gone almost continuously. The German Society, as you can imagine, had a problem in the 1930s. In 1933, they were given an ultimatum of joining the Nazi living reform movement or close. They carried out a ballot of all their members, and they voted to close. They didn't want to be part of the Nazis. 1945, the Super War was over, they reformed. They actually carried on meeting right through the 1930s and 40s in individual homes, which was potentially quite dangerous, but they kept it going and reformed. So we're starting to get vegetarian societies and organisations spreading around the world. India, which, looking around, I think might be of interest to quite a few of you from your ancestry. This is a lot earlier than some people think as well. 1889 to 1908. The red dots are vegetarian societies that we know about, mostly in the north, a couple in Mumbai. There were almost certainly more that we don't have records of. And these vegetarian societies were being run by Indians for other Indians in their own language. Nothing to do with the British. All they did was borrow the British idea of having a society. Round about that time, of course, Gandhi went to London. 1888, when Gandhi was 18 or 19, he went to London as a law student. And when he left Bombay as it was then, he made a vow to his mother not to eat meat while he was in London. And he stuck to it, with great difficulty, living on bread with water mostly. And then he found a vegetarian restaurant, so he could actually eat properly at last. On the way in, he found a book called A Plea for Vegetarianism by a man called Henry Soult. All of this is in Gandhi's autobiography. He wrote it up in great detail himself. And he read this book by Henry Soult and decided that he would become a vegetarian. This is someone who, as a Hindu, had never eaten meat in his life, only apart from once, one occasion. But he never thought of himself as a vegetarian. He was just a Hindu. He didn't eat meat. So he detached it, decided that being vegetarian was important in itself, not just because of the vow he made to his mother. But we'll come back to all that as we go. 1908, International Vegetarian Union. By 1908, there was a vegetarian society in almost every country in Europe, as well as America, India, Australia, and spreading around the world. So the idea was to have a federation of all these societies and bring them together. And that was the first IVU Congress held in Dresden, in Germany. About 25 people there one day. The last Congress, about a month ago, was in Jakarta, Indonesia, and we had 5,000 people. So we've progressed a little bit. First 50 years of IVU, 1908 through to 1955, organising international vegetarian congresses. And those red dots are where all the congresses were held. They didn't get far into Europe, let alone the rest of the world. All in Northwest Europe, a whole series of them. There were attempts to go elsewhere. San Francisco offered to host one in 1915. The Europeans said, no, it's too far to go. Not if you live in California, it's not, but we had to wait a long time for that one. But eventually, it spread out. In 1958, they wanted a congress in Germany, 50 years when it started. That all fell through. By this time, the Indians had been saying, we want a World Congress in India. And the Europeans, oh, it's too far to go again. But when 1958 fell through, the Indians said, we'll do it. And what they did was something that no one had ever seen before. Let this one through. Congresses up till then had been 4 or 5 days in one place. The Indians held it in Bombay, Delhi, Calcutta and Madras, as they were, a week in each. 2,000 people attending lectures. They had speakers hanging out of the windows so the crowds couldn't get in. Europe had never seen anything like this one. The Prime Minister of India opened it. They had a reception at the President's Palace. Absolutely huge. So this took IBU finally out of Europe to start becoming a little more worldwide. Then another big jump to America. American vegetarians have sort of come and gone, not much happening in the first half of the century. They got involved again by about 1950. And in 1972, the first ever regional congress in the unlikely place of Venezuela, in a Latin American congress. And some Americans from the USA went down to this and thought, we need some of that. They started the North American Vegetarian Society with the aim of holding a congress in 1975 in Maine. The woman in the picture is Dixie Mayhew, who is now the president of the San Francisco Vegetarian Society. That's her in 1975, so she's a bit older now. She's still there, still president, and she is organising the next World Vegetarian Congress in San Francisco, the main organiser of it. Just a few pictures from 1975. This had a big impact. All the historians who looked at this said that it kick-started the vegetarian movement in North America. Before that, there were lots of individuals, isolated groups. What this did was to bring them together. It ran over 2 weeks, 1,500 people there in Maine. As a result, there were more vegetarian organisations. Magazines like Vegetarian Times came out of it, all launched from this congress. The guy in the top left picture is Jay Dinsham, who's American of Indian ancestry. He was the mastermind of the whole thing, founder of the American Vegan Society in 1960. But somehow it's always Indians running all this. Everywhere I go in the world, I meet Indians making all this difference. Another big jump. First Congress in East Asia in 1999, Shanghai in Thailand. We had a few problems in IBU during the 1980s and 90s, so this didn't have the impact that it should have had. But we used it to do a lot of rethinking about IBU, to reorganise. We wrote a new constitution, changed everything we were doing. And the next big jump forward, 2004, we went to Brazil. Hugely successful congress. And for me, this is the real new beginning, where we started again after all the problems we had. The congress was in that beach resort, which is a nice place to be. On the right is a cruelty-free fashion show. That ran for 2 nights, no leather, no fur, no silk, nothing like that. Enormously successful. This congress again kick-started a lot of organisations in Latin America. We've now got a lot of societies starting all over the Spanish and Portuguese-speaking world as a result of this one. 2006, we were in Goa. As you can see, quite a lot of fun at that congress too. On the beach resort in Goa. We needed to rethink how we approached Asia. That was IBU's view of the world. Divided into 6 regions, And you've got the brown area, which was Asia, and down the bottom right, Australasia. The obvious problem is the city of Mumbai has a bigger population than Australia and New Zealand combined. So it's a bit of an imbalance. We needed to change it around a bit. So we did that. You've now got India and West Asia, and on the right is Asia Pacific, which makes a bit more sense to us. And we brought in 2 new regional coordinators, Shankar Narayan, who is sitting over there, Shankar became regional coordinator for India and Southwest Asia, which includes the Middle East. And on the right is Susianto Seng from Indonesia, who is regional coordinator for Asia Pacific. And they've both done an amazing job over the last 4 years, getting all sorts of things going, organised, as you'll see in a minute. Just to make sure Asia was fully represented, this is George Jacobs. He doesn't look very Asian, but he's actually from Singapore and he lived in China for many years. He's now the chairman of the IVU Council. So Asia is now much more strongly represented. Before this, it was really Europe and North America. So we rebalanced it. The Congress is taking on Taiwan, 2007. This was the Asian Vegetarian Congress. 7,500 people turned up. As you can see, most of them dressed exactly the same. They're all members of the same Buddhist temple. But there were quite a few others as well. 2008, we had the Centenary Congress in Germany. Went back to Dresden where it started. Some congresses are very organised, very structured. Others are more laid back, work it out as we go along. The Germans have their own way of doing things. 4 years in advance of this, I was given a CD, and on that CD was a programme in great detail, everything we can do every day, including Tuesday afternoon, 2:30, city tour in Dresden, and here's a picture of the bus. And it happened exactly as they said 4 years later. Everything precisely to plan. International vegan festivals, these started in the 1980s. IVU has become increasingly involved in supporting and working with them, and particularly encouraging them to move around the world instead of being in Europe again. This was the 11th International Vegan Festival in India. I was talking to someone earlier about this. Vegans in India is not the most obvious thing you think of. But in the last 4 years, we've seen a huge change. And to me, what's happening, a lot of young people in India are turning away from their religion, becoming more westernized. Especially in places like Bangalore, they're surrounded by computer companies, surrounded by McDonald's and KFC. Trying to persuade them to go back to their traditional way of life isn't really having much impact. What we have found is talking about Western-style vegan to these highly westernized Indians does actually get through. And we've seen an enormous increase in the number of vegans in India. Relative to the total number of vegetarians, it's still tiny, but it's happening. In Brazil, 2009, Marley Winkler, our regional coordinator of Latin America, organised this one. And again, a highly successful vegan festival. So we're spreading them out again around the world instead of just Europe, particularly trying to move towards developing countries. Africa. I've just spent the last 4 days in Nairobi, Kenya, came back last night. We're trying to get a congress going there. Background to it, this is 2007, the first ever vegetarian congress in Africa. It took IVU 99 years to get to having a congress in Africa. Mainly thanks to the guy just to the left with his hand up, Emmanuel Ayo, who I just met for the first time this week in Nairobi. And he's done a great job for us. He's now the regional coordinator for Africa. This one was in Lagos in Nigeria, where he lives. Then last year, 2009, we had another one. This is in Accra, in Ghana, the second West African Congress. As you can see, they saved a bit of money on booking a hall by holding it in the local park. Much easier that way. Top left, all of these African congresses, they would go up the march with the banners, they marched down to the Ministry of Health. Rather than persuading the minister to come here as you did today, they go down there. They also have a homeless feeding program. We did this in Nairobi last week. I went out with a group from Hare Krishnas, huge vats of food, go out to the slums, and we fed 100 people on last Thursday. And they do this as a part of the Congress. No one else does this. All of these African congresses, they all go out on the march with the banners, they march down to the Ministry of Health. Rather than persuading the minister to come here as you did today, they go down there. They also have a homeless feeding program. We did this in Nairobi last week. I went out with a group from Hare Krishnas, huge vats of food, go out to the slums, and we fed 100 people on last Thursday. And they do this as a part of the Congress. No one else does this. There are poor, hungry people all over the world, but it's only the Africans who think we're doing it. There are lots of other places we should be. They brought in a lot of new ideas and new thinking about ways of organising these congresses. I learned an enormous amount from the time I've just spent in Africa the last few days. So we're hoping that this will continue to develop. Indonesia and China, and again, we've never done anything in either of these countries until last year, the 4th Asian Vegetarian Congress in Indonesia. Totally unexpected, we had 1,000 people at this Congress. Absolutely huge. It was organised by the Indonesian Vegetarian Society, which started out as a Maitreya Buddhist organisation. When they changed their name to the Vegetarian Society, wanted to organise a World Congress, we said, great, but we're not having a Buddhist Congress. It's got to be everyone. And they really worked hard on involving other communities, other religious groups. The picture at the bottom left, this was by chance, I was sitting opposite these two young women at lunchtime. As you can see, the one on the left is obviously Muslim. The one on the right is a Seventh-day Adventist Christian. These two were the best of friends, they were everywhere together all week. And I just had to get a picture, given that this is a congress organised by Buddhists. And to me, this is just great. This is how it should be, everyone in together. The man on top right in the suit is Professor Duo Li from Hangzhou in China. He's actually organising the next Asian Vegetarian Congress in China. And that will be the first one we've ever had there. This was China last year. There was a food fair, as you can see in the picture at the top left, a vegetarian food fair, roughly 4 times the size of this food fair that we've got outside the organic fair here today. It's absolutely enormous. Combined with a Buddhist craft fair, as you can see in the other pictures. But the food fair was just completely vegetarian, mostly being run by businesses from Taiwan that wanted to break into the Chinese market. There's just some more pictures from it. The top left, you've got the Great Wall of China and the Beijing Olympic flame. It's a plate of vegetables. I like doing their decorative vegetables. On the left, there was a lecture, like this one. All the talks were in Chinese and they were just going around the whole time the Congress was on. Top right is me with our Chinese webmaster. I've worked with him for 12 years but never met him. And he had to keep a low profile because the Chinese government don't always approve of some of these things. But we finally met. One afternoon we had an international vegetarian forum. It was the first time anything like this has happened in China. 5 speakers, myself, we had Singapore, Indonesia, China, Taiwan, most of the audience with headphones. So it was a major step forward for us. And then, of course, last year, that was here, I think, somewhere near here, the Veg Congress. A bit like this, but a lot smaller. So now this is moving up a stage. And to me, it's just amazing to be here at all. having a vegetarian congress in the Middle East. 2 years ago, I could never have imagined this. So, there may not be thousands of people here, but for everyone who is, thank you for coming, because this is, for me, quite historic that we're here at all, just to have this happening. That's just a sort of collection of IBU in the 21st century, or really since 2004, because what we've done is try to put more energy into the developing world, instead of just Western Europe and America. Those pictures of Indonesia, China, Brazil, India, Dubai, Ghana, all over the world, getting things happening. 2010, the World Congress was held in Jakarta. When we arranged this, I didn't know what to expect. And what they did just amazed me. Some pictures from it. We had the biggest food fair I've ever seen at the World Congress, completely vegetarian food fair. 5,000 people passed through, several hundred of them attending lectures. We had the most children I've ever seen at a Congress. Children's activities of all sorts. Metro TV set up a complete TV studio. That's a cookery demo. We did a chat show from there as well. As you can see, bottom left, a local Muslim school sent all their pupils for a whole day. A Catholic school sent their pupils for a whole day. The local university sent all their nutrition students for a whole day. So it was a huge achievement to get all this happening. My favourite picture is the one on the top right. What's Arash? Oh, stand up, Arash. This is Arash Rashidi from Iran, and he'll be speaking later. And Arash gave a talk in Jakarta about himself and about Islam and about vegetarianism. And the amazing thing, you can just see the backs of their heads. The 5 guys in the front row are all from Afghanistan. And to me, being a Westerner and not knowing much about these things, to be in a meeting with a guy from Iran talking to 5 other guys from Afghanistan about vegetarianism was extraordinary. And these 5, they're all students in Jakarta. They go back in a few months and they say they're going to start the Afghan Vegetarian Society when they get back. That would be really something. To me, this was the best Congress we've ever had. Future organisers have got quite a job to live up to. I don't know if you can see in the bottom left picture, the guy speaking to the school children is Susianto Sen. He's our regional coordinator, and he was the mastermind behind this whole thing. The shirt he's wearing in that photo, you can't really see it very well to batik. It's actually the same as this. This is the uniform of the organising committee for the Congress. And as soon as I saw it, I got one of those. I got one, and I wear it whenever I'm giving talks now. So after Jakarta, a few things, some that have just gone, some are coming up. While I was in China, I met a guy who runs a restaurant in Beijing. He turns out to be a regular at this event in Los Angeles. So we're all meeting up all around the world. ISWA is India and Southwest Asia. This was in Bangalore. Again, this is Shankar again. He's everywhere. A completely vegan congress in India. Unheard of and unthinkable a few years ago, but it happened. In China, this is the one I went to last year. They did it again this year, a different program, and I suggested that they get Professor Duo Li from Hangzhou as their keynote speaker. And they liked the idea of that, but said they didn't know him and he's an important professor, and would I introduce them and arrange it? So I put him in touch with them, and he went along as the main speaker. For me, it was very strange. I'd never heard of until a year ago, to be the go-between of setting this up. This is what IBU should be doing. It's what we're all